It is 5:15. We have a quorum, and I will call the meeting to order. So the first item on the agenda that we have is the introduction of a new employee, and we're always happy to see new employees. So, new employee, do you want to?
Do you have a name, by the way?
I do have a name. My name is Kenny Niemeyer, and I'm in week 4 now at the City of Bloomington, so thank you for the welcome. I have just started as the Housing Development Specialist, so that'll be oversight of the Opportunity Housing Ordinance. And I previously was working at City of Plymouth, where I oversaw their CDBG program, as well as their first-time homebuyer and rehab loan programs. So I got some good experience with compliance over there that I hope to bring to the work here. And prior to that, I got my master's degree at the Humphrey School in urban planning. So yeah, really excited for the work here. Affordable housing is what I'm really passionate about, so this feels like a really great fit.
So where'd you get your undergraduate degree?
Also at the U of M.
Oh, fantastic. There's a few of us are U of M grads and been active there. I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Well, we welcome you very much. We'll look forward. I'm sure we'll be interacting with you some more. And so, do you live in Bloomington?
I don't. I live in St. Paul, but
So we'll have to try to convince you at some point in time to relocate to Bloomington and enjoy some of the things we have here and work on the projects. But we won't be too brutal on that. We have a little fun with it once in a while.
well, thank you for the welcome. I appreciate it.
So welcome. Okay. Port Authority work plan. Holly, are you going to?
I will get us started. Thank you. President Erickson, Commissioners, good evening. Before presenting our 2024 budget to you, we wanted to ground you in a work plan update for 2023. The Port Authority made several shifts in service this year, including expanding its geographic boundaries to include all of Bloomington and adding focused small business assistance to our work. In 2024, you will see continuation and expansion of those services, as well as new programs to support economic development in Bloomington. Tonight, you will be hearing from Alejandra Palenka, Director of Creative Placemaking, Barb Wolf, Assistant Port Authority Administrator, and Jason Schmidt, Assistant Port Authority Administrator. Alejandra, please come to the podium.
Hello, Commissioners, Mayor. Thank you so much for having me tonight. I'm just going to do a brief overview tonight. I know many of you are already very familiar with some of the work that we're doing and myself, but we thought it would be a good opportunity to just do a little introduction and overview. So my name's Alejandra Palenka, and I'm the Director of Creative Placemaking here at the city. I've been here now for 7 years. It's gone by very fast, and it's been wonderful. I have a background in mostly arts administration, mostly in the nonprofit sector. This is my first position in the public sector, and I've really enjoyed it. My previous role was as the Executive Director of Northeast Minneapolis Arts Association, or NEMA, so I organized Art-A-Whirl, which is the largest open studio tour in the country. And then I also currently now serve on the board of Metropolitan Regional Arts Council and on the Prior Lake Arts and Culture Committee. So I like to start off with just doing a really super brief definition of creative placemaking, just to kind of ground us all in shared definition. And so we think of creative placemaking as a process, most importantly, where art plays an intentional and integrated role in place-based community development and planning. And doing this while honoring the existing character, history, and assets that already exist in that place, and engaging community and stakeholders so that they're ideally leading what types of projects we're doing that best fit their community or neighborhood. Outcomes from creative placemaking can be things like public art, so murals or sculptures. They can also be events like festivals or other experiential type of things. And placemaking is really centered around creating equitable gathering places and fostering walkability. So it could also mean things like pocket parks, creative crosswalks, activating storefronts, and more. Research shows that communities with vibrant cultural scene are more desirable to live in, have greater economic stability, and attract a more diverse and educated workforce. And the City of Bloomington commissioned a report from Creative MN and found the arts and culture sector has a $12.1 million economic impact in the City of Bloomington. It also fosters 296 full-time equivalent jobs and nearly $900,000 in government revenues. So this demonstrates an impactful contribution to local service providers, retailers, restaurants, and just really the overall economy. So investment in the creative economy offers a really strong return on investment. In 2015, our work really kicked off with the development of a South Loop District Creative Placemaking Plan, which was adopted by the City Council and Artistry Board of Directors. The plan's vision and goals have really helped to guide our work over the years and determine our project priorities. So you can see here our vision was that sustained creative placemaking efforts will establish the South Loop as a distinctive destination known for welcoming people and using the arts to transform the neighborhood physically, socially, and culturally. And then here it lists some of our goals. So I think as we create our citywide master plan, we'll really look at this as a really great template and seeing what really worked well for us. So an outcome of the plan was the formation of a creative placemaking commission, and they advise us on creative placemaking projects and work, and we discussed this question to guide our work over the past few years, which is, given what we know of our creative placemaking plan, what elements do we want to see in the next 3 years as a result of some of our actions? So one of them, for example, was grand and colorful places to play. Another example is a cohesive and distinct wayfinding. Talk a little bit just about some of the work that we've done this year as an update. So we partnered with Public Art St. Paul for their first ever WACPA Triennial Art Festival. It actually took place, it started in June 24th, it goes through September 16th, and we coordinated 3 affiliated events. So one of them was the Latino Conservation Week Festival. It took place at the Minnesota Valley National Wildlife Refuge. We partnered with the Refuge, Huellas Latinas, and Indigenous Roots on this. And there was food, music, performances, activities, and more during that event. We also did a pop-up engagement event led by local artists at this Old Cedar Avenue Bridge to guide potential future installation that acknowledges the nature, wildlife, and Indigenous history of the area. And then the third was a South Loop History Report / Indigenous History of Bloomington presentation, which actually took place last week. And we're working on a recording, and we'll share that as well. We started installing some of our poetry signs in parks and sidewalk stamps this year. These were a result of our hometown poetry program, which showcased poems from Bloomington residents. We fabricated 12 stamps in total and 4 signs. All of the signs have been installed. We're working on installing the sidewalk stamps. It has to take place with sidewalk replacement, so we have to kind of just wait for those to happen before we can install those. But our website does show a list of all of the poems and all of the locations as well. We also installed some small-scale improvements for businesses at the Old Shakopee and Old Cedar area, which is a priority neighborhood node, and that included things like a custom bench for Ocean Blue Tattoo and an updated window design for Euro Grills, along with a few other projects listed here. Right now, we're finalizing construction on a South Loop community garden, and this incorporates an artful element. So I think this is a good demonstration of how we weave in artists in our work. We actually asked the landscape designer to include an artist on their planning team. And so here you can see a draft rendering of a canopy and cyanotype banners, which will be installed on site. The banners are going to be co-designed by artist Sheila Novak and Dakota artist Erin Genia. And these banners will share the story of the land, honoring the sun, water, and histories of the significant Minnesota River Valley, the life it supports, and its value to Indigenous communities. One of our priorities is ongoing support of the Small Business Center, which will strengthen our community by increasing economic mobility among underrepresented groups and enhance access to support for small businesses and aspiring entrepreneurs, particularly BIPOC and women-owned businesses, youth, and of course, artists. So this summer we supported Juxtaposition Arts. They use creative placemaking as a strategy for engagement to design during the design process, and in thinking of ways to integrate opportunities for creative placemaking into the long-term site and programming plans. And next, we'll be working on a public art plan for the building, both for projects that could take place within the building and in the exterior of the building. So just listed here are a few additional projects this year, including a Making It Public workshop for artists in January. We're expecting a sculpture by artist team Safa Sarvastani and Sharon Garashi to be installed at Bloomington Central Station Park yet this fall. And we'll be developing a third round of our Creative Sparks program. And of course, the development of a citywide creative placemaking master plan. So this is an outcome of the community strategic planning process and support from the Housing and Redevelopment Authority to take our work citywide. We are currently reviewing proposals from consultants to help us develop the plan, and so we plan to start this fall, and engagement will be a vital component to the development of this plan, which will take place throughout the next year. We also expect to have some kind of demonstration project, whether it's a project or an event, to help support some of our engagement efforts. Also, just to point out that we have a South Loop Public Art audio tour within our AutoCast app. We joined over 250 guides across the country and became the first guide based in Minnesota. There's I think one or two now in Minnesota. And this is really just the goal of getting people to engage with the artwork, encourage exploration, and spend more time enjoying the area. And we definitely hope to expand this throughout the whole city now that our work is taking place throughout. Creative placemaking and public art processes and installations, as I've mentioned, have the potential to uplift the neighborhood spirits, build community resilience, provide connection and hope, add to the livability factor, support the local economy, and support entrepreneurs, specifically artists. So just want to thank you again for your support, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Well, thank you, Alejandra. I think a number of us spent that afternoon or a little bit more touring the city, looking at creative placemaking, and I know I found it very helpful just to look, and I was talking with Holly. I mean, one of our challenges now is to broaden our Port Authority agenda from really being laser focused on South Loop now to the entire city. And so it's going to be an interesting process as we go through, and I think this planning gets to be so important. When I was at the University of Minnesota, and Tim probably remember this, we undertook master planning, and it was transformative of the campus. I mean, again, I think if you get somebody in to help with visioning and things, so as we move through this process, I'm going to be a big advocate of spending some money to take and really give us some ideas about what we can do, because I think we've got an exciting community here and things you bring. So, Board, other questions, commissioners?
I think this is the kind of stuff that's really important on top of the physical plant things we've been doing to bring, not just to bring people in, but to provide a quality of life that people who've walked through old brick Soviet architecture will understand. So lots of things here I liked.
Thank you.
Great. Any other? Well, thank you very much. Jenna? Commissioner?
Thank you. Maybe this is for Holly. I'm just curious, we're talking about a creative placemaking strategic plan for the city, but also a Port Authority strategic plan for the city, and so I'm just wondering how those will be working in parallel or intersecting as we move along.
Yes, I'm happy to answer that. Thank you, Commissioner. We are also in the process of launching a 5-year plan for the Port Authority, which will be an economic development plan. And in that, we have mentioned other plans we would like them to reference. So this is one of the processes that we know will be integrated as we go forward with that plan as well.
Great, thank you. I will say that the residents of Bloomington are very excited about this. I can't tell you how many times I've had people ask why we don't have as much of the art and murals and sculptures across the entire community. And so, very excited. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Commissioner Bussey?
Thank you. You said 7 years. I can't believe it's been that long already. As somebody who was on the council when this was adopted, and I remember it being a puzzling thing when we first started talking about it, and to see it take shape and to really mature now, and to look at it, and with the expansion across the city, it's going to be very exciting. It really is, and looking forward to seeing what this plan brings forth, what you have in mind for all of this. You say residents. When I talk to folks from other cities, when we talk about creative placemaking, this is the one thing. It's the one thing that everybody is very envious of the city of Bloomington for. That we have this type of commitment to this to art, and that we've made not only the financial commitment, but the policy related commitment to make this a thing in our city. So, great cities have great art, and so looking forward to see where we end up next. So, well done.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hunt?
I don't want to be Debbie Downer because I do appreciate art and so forth and the creativity and looking. The flip side, I have a lot of business owners that question the expenditures and why is the city doing that. So just to offset some of the personal citizens, there's also a lot of businesses that are, why'd the city spend money on that? So passing those comments on.
I think, did you want Alejandro to comment on that more?
I didn't know if that was a question.
I don't know that you need to. And I also happen to come from a corporate entity that at one time had the largest corporate art collection in the United States. Very controversial. A lot of pieces, very controversial. So it met that criteria. But it's just, I'm passing those comments on that not everybody, there's the cost
Well, I
consideration.
think, Commissioner Race, the communication of these things and the why, and you had some things on economic impact and things, and it's important to keep on talking about those. I think in terms of the larger planning environment, and creative placemaking is a piece of it, but it's only a piece. And again, if we don't have a vision, then you can take any path. And just referencing back to the University of Minnesota, when I became senior VP there, somebody would start pounding their fist on the table about they want a building there, and pretty soon you had a building there. Nobody considered circulation patterns or anything else. It's just got to be. So you have to have these things, and I'm a broken drum on it, but I look at Bloomington with over 30% parkland, and I say, who knows? We're in a situation where this community has an asset, one of the most significant assets for a lot of people in the situation now that we simply don't capitalize on because we don't talk about it or don't have the access or ability. So, again, these are just things that come up, but it's going to be a very interesting several years as we get into expanding our vision and looking at these things and communicating. And I think as Commissioner Hunt raises, we need to constantly talk about the economic benefit of doing it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, there are, aside from the social and cultural benefits, the economic benefits have been shown throughout in projects throughout the country. In addition, it can create buzz, it can change the neighborhood perception, it can encourage people to frequent or patronize local businesses, and just can make places feel more safe, can spur economic development, as we talked about, and get people engaged. So there are certainly benefits that, aside from it being beautiful or aesthetically beautiful, or aesthetically pleasing, I should say, or interesting, it can go beyond that with creating more walkable places that actually encourage frequenting local small businesses.
So can I ask a question about that a little bit? And I'm not trying to start a debate, and I know you weren't either, but I'm actually asking a question because I'd like to have the answer and I don't have it. I just have to think that some businesses, and perhaps all, and it probably no doubt depends on what kind of business this is, but would find locating in a place that seems more visually appealing, it would be part of the customer process. And, I don't know. I don't, obviously, not knowing, I certainly don't have any numbers, but I do think as a guy whose office is in his basement, that if I had a bigger business, I wouldn't want it at a strip mall so much as I would like it someplace where there's a park and people, and that the presence of all these other people would make it seem like it was not some weird, unsafe neighborhood. So that's all undocumented, baseless in terms of facts in my head, but if you have them, I'd like to hear them.
Certainly, yes. I mean, I think that we can see in a lot of projects and, locally, but there's examples throughout the country when you blend creative placemaking or arts and culture with something else, a concern of the neighborhood. So let's say there's a concern of safety. Well, how can you work together to address the challenges that may be safety challenges that you have in the community with arts and culture components? The arts and culture have a way to get people engaged, especially youth. So the youth are much more likely to participate in engagement activities if there's an arts or culture component to it. So, I think that cross-sector and cross-discipline work is a huge potential for creative placemaking. So if there is an issue, artists have a unique way of addressing challenges and problems in neighborhoods. So I just think it's one process and one tool in the toolkit that can address issues. So, there's, aside from safety, there's other issues that we can talk about, maybe the walkability factor, or transportation, or, health, for example. There's also a huge epidemic of social isolation right now in our country. So, what are some ways that we can help foster some programs or activities that, at least in a small scale way, can help, activate or address some of those challenges?
Right. Thanks.
Okay, other questions? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to bring Barb up. Welcome.
Good evening. Good evening, President, Commissioners. I'm Barb Wolf, one of the Assistant Port Authority Administrators. And this evening, I'm going to talk about business assistance and introduce sort of that topic in this new category that we have here in the Port Authority. So starting out, why should we focus on small business in our community? When we look at the Small Business Administration, the SBA, they define a small business as 500 or fewer employees, independently owned, and really have little influence on the industry that they're located in. But when we're talking about Bloomington, we're really referring to the small businesses that are 20 or fewer employees. We're looking at brick and mortar, we're looking at home-based businesses, startups, entrepreneurs. These startups and entrepreneurs are becoming more prevalent since the pandemic. There's a lot more ideas out there. And the impact on our community, when we're looking at the metro area, over 99% of the businesses in the metro area are small businesses. And when you look at those small businesses, over 45% of them employ the metro area. So it's significant. Producing equity and access, small businesses are able increasingly to provide more opportunities to women and also minorities to achieve financial growth, much easier than in a larger corporation. And then the community asset that is given by small businesses. Having these independently owned businesses in our community, they really serve our neighborhoods and really give us the unique identity that Bloomington is. How did we get here? In 2020, the City Council had CARES Act funding that they wanted to distribute to the small business community. And I got tapped on in my former role here at the city to help assist the Port Authority and how do we reach the business community? Who are they? What are the issues that they're having? How do we get the money to them? So I started working with the Port Authority staff to distribute the money and started creating these relationships with the business community. And I just continued to work on that over the last several years. And I've really enjoyed doing that work. I really started to serve as a point of contact to the business community, and when they had issues, reached out to me for connections. And then, of course, we launched this as citywide in 2023. So as we navigate this new work, we really want to align it with the citywide plans and priorities that are already in place and those that will be forthcoming. So when we look at Bloomington Tomorrow Together, Business assistance will help achieve the city's economic development goal of creating a community with equitable economic growth and providing that expanded diversity throughout our community. We also have, that was adopted this summer, the Public Relations, Communications, and Marketing Plan. And although this work was led by the Communications Division, the strategies that came out of there really need to be implemented by staff. And so one of the strategies for the Port Authority is looking at creating business advocates and enhance outreach to the business community. So that's where we're going to collaborate to continue with that work. And then, of course, the 5-year strategic plan that's coming forward will build into that the business attraction, retention, and expansion for our small businesses. When we're looking at this work overall for business assistance, we have this set of goals, the overarching. Really important to build the relationships, those positive relationships with our community so that they have a point of contact. Also reducing the disparity by providing equitable support to business owners of all backgrounds and supporting the success of our increasingly diverse community. We're actually leveling the playing field for all our businesses in Bloomington by doing this work, and we really plan to build these services while continuing to provide the high quality services to larger businesses as the port has done over the past several decades. Equitably supporting a mix of industries and business sizes across our community will help reduce these disparities.
Barb, I just want to comment. I think
Sure.
this leveling the playing field is really an important concept because we've been providing access and financial support to a lot of the major businesses, obviously the Mall of America, South Loop, all these things. And people that have the resources to ask for it will probably get it. I mean, SICK is a good example of them coming in a coordinated project. But if you're a small business, you really don't have that ability to do it. And so I think this is an important avenue for the Port Authority to take and try to help these folks that are getting started that are doing it on a shoestring. And so it is something that I hadn't thought about it before, but as I started thinking about what we're really trying to do here, that level of the playing field is really an important concept.
I appreciate that comment, President Erickson, because leading right into changing the perceptions. You know, what we're trying to do is overcome those negative perceptions of working with the city and over time building that business loyalty. I have heard out there that we are helping the larger businesses, but not so much the small businesses. So this work is important to both the residents and the businesses.
And what we need to make sure we do is take and maintain the contacts with our large and medium-sized businesses too, because they're the backbone of the community, and that's critically important. But again, this is addressing a group that we really haven't done systematically in the past.
Thank you. So really overall, we want to establish Bloomington as a welcoming and attractive place to do business. And the Port Authority is really the central location for all that economic development information and resources to connect with our community. And of course, as we continue to grow in this work, it will just help grow Bloomington's tax base and the employment by supporting all existing businesses and attracting new businesses that we're seeking. So when we're looking at these overarching goals, we have 6 strategies to help assist with these goals. So as part of this work, we do understand that there is a lot of organizations out there, a lot of partners that are already excelling in these specific programs to assist businesses. So understanding these programs and being informed and serving as a connector to businesses to the appropriate resources. Essentially, we don't want to duplicate services. So collaborating with our partners when appropriate and learning what the businesses need and connecting them to those resources. At the heart of this for me is engagement and relationship building, and it's been a very important avenue to do. So continually proactively reaching out to businesses in the community to let them know that the city is working to serve them, specifically our business assistance team. So in advance of the Business Center opening, we're getting businesses to exercise that muscle of having that connection with city staff and building that trust over time. So as part of that, we've started welcoming Wednesdays, where businesses can come into the city to connect with resources here on the second Wednesday of every month. And we also have business engagement visits where myself and a technical advisor go out into the community to meet businesses, and we do that on the fourth Wednesday of every month. And really, example here is having a presence at the community events. I've been to a number of events over the summer and connecting businesses to resources. And even if people aren't a business owner, just knowing that we're doing this work as a city. And the event on the one festival that I was at this previous Saturday, there was a handful of people that are small business owners, but I also help businesses that are in Hennepin County with the resources that are available. So it was very fulfilling for that. As we're doing this work, we're updating our web pages and our resources and continuous collaboration with communication staff. They've been phenomenal to get the word out for us. And really, all of this is about providing that one-on-one assistance, being the connector for everybody. I shouldn't say everybody, but being the connector to our business community. Essentially, us as staff, we're not intended to be and offer the technical expertise. We're really serving as the connectors and the guides and the advocates for our business community. So part of that is informing, becoming well-versed on the various small business resources that are available through our partners, and proactively sharing this information and connecting to the Bloomington businesses. We're also assisting this one-on-one service by navigating our city application and permitting process. This has been an issue for businesses in the past, especially small ones, and also helping with grants and other programs as needed to support the competitiveness of our business community. An example of this is applying for the grant last year to help Europolis with their expansion at their location. And basically an advocate for the businesses so that we can help them solve their problems as they arise and they have a person to go to. Through all this work, and at this point, we don't really believe that there is one singular database for all the businesses in Bloomington and how we know who they are. So we're keeping notice of openings through colleagues, social media, community contacts, and other sources, and making sure that we go out to welcome businesses as we learn that they're coming to our community. But also just as important, if businesses are leaving the community, understanding why they're leaving and how that may help improve our services. We're also monitoring this attendance at any of our programs. It's important to know who we're serving so we know who we're not serving. And then we're also considering some customer relationship management software for acquiring that for easy reporting, and also an annual business perception survey. There's several programs and services that we've initiated as a city. Welcome to Bloomington is welcoming businesses to our community, going out and actually visiting them at their site, dropping off a small gift for them, and just finding out what would be useful for them or for their staff and what we could provide to them for resources. CEO Start is a partnership with Hennepin County and Brooklyn Park. This is a new cohort program. Hennepin County is actually funding it, and they've asked us to provide space and facilitation for 2 cohorts in 2024. So our first one will be in the first quarter of next year, and then the second one later next year. This is a program that will get to about 10 to 12 entrepreneurs and startups, and we'll be using actual community members to help facilitate those discussions. We'll also be adding a business development specialist here in 2023 by the end of the year. That is part of our approved budget for this year. And also exploring a partnership with the Minneapolis Regional Chamber to bring monthly meetings for our business community here to the city. And all of this is, again, advanced work prior to the Small Business Center anticipated opening at the end of 2024, which will serve as a hub for intentional and equitable connections to resources. And then working again with our communications as campaigns throughout the year, Small Business Week, Small Business Saturday. We have a video series called Bloomington Collective, Stories of Solidarity, and these are videos on small businesses that are BIPOC owned in our community. And lastly, as we're doing this work, we're using this information that we're collecting to proactively analyze our existing programs and learn how to improve the experience of our small businesses. Last year in 2022, we adopted 2 different programs for SAC, which is our sewer availability charge. This is an assessment that is done by the Metropolitan Council depending on how much water usage a business would have. And so each one of those units assessed to a business is worth about $2,500. So some of these fees when you have a startup business are quite considerable. So we passed a program to do a 5-year deferral loan at a low interest rate. So for 2023, it's 1.98%. We also have a citywide program where the SAC units stay with the property. So we've been accumulating a bit of a pool, so we're able to gift SAC credits to businesses. So we've done a number of those up to 6 SAC units. We also are working on a facade improvement program, which would really be more of a front door revitalization, the area from the right-of-way all the way up to the areas that you can see on the side of the building. We expect that to come forward in 2024. And the business relocation program would be making funds available for small businesses that would be displaced to redevelopment. And then internally in the Port Authority, we're working on doing a local purchasing prioritization. So as we need to purchase items, we're using businesses, small businesses within our community, or any size business actually. And if that's not available to us for what we're looking for, then we could go to a chain organization that would more than likely keep the dollars in our region. And if we're not able to find there, then we could go out beyond the borders. And so with that, small business assistant is really important to our community. Small businesses, as I said, make up in the metro area over 99% of the businesses, and so they're very important to the vitality of our community. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Thank you, Barb. One of the things I was talking with Holly about as we were talking about the agenda and things is just how important it is that we develop metrics for saying, are we successful on these programs or not? And then maybe if 3 years and 5 years, really do an intensive look to say, is this program doing what we want? I think we've all been involved with things, and I'm excited about what you're talking about, but I've also seen some things that just kind of take on a life of their own without evaluation, and I think we want to make sure we're doing that on a very regular basis. But this is exciting. So, Port Authority questions? Commissioner Hunt?
Yeah, I like the presentation. The information you shared, thank you for that. A couple things. I like the comment, too, about helping existing businesses navigate through some of our myriad of processes. That's a really difficult thing, no matter what size business you are, so that's good. And I like that welcoming Wednesday. It's always good to put that out to clients that are, this is, hey, it's not just City Hall. You can actually get help there. But the other thing I'm glad you said is new businesses to the city that are coming in, maybe moving for another one. I shared this a number of years ago, not with you and maybe not anyone right here, but I was up at actually a couple customers in another city just west of us who had relocated there, and we had just finished construction of their building or renovations on actually both, and the city community development director, I think, and a council person had come out to visit them, and that's something that they were regularly doing to their sizable businesses, and I thought that was really nice, and the customer is just ecstatic, and he's, I have my banker here today, I have my city here today, what more could you do? So that's really powerful to businesses, and some that do forget, no matter how big they are, that they want to be appreciated by where they choose to have their business and their employees, whether it's 2 employees or 1,000 employees. So.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'd like to add that one of my colleagues here in the audience today shared with us that there was this long post on Facebook today that we were out at his business last week and visited with him, and he also came into Welcoming Wednesdays this month, and so he just got connected to a number of resources, and it was just a very positive message. It was very uplifting.
That's great.
So it's working.
Commissioner Keller?
Well, so this will probably seem a little self-interested because it is. It's good those things work together. So, a couple of questions. One, what's a small business? We always talk about 1 or 2 employees or bringing 800 employees in. It's a lot of businesses that are just sole proprietorships, like mine. So do we count that as something we want to attract, or is the lack of a employee workforce kind of push you off to the side as a non-factor?
Thank you, Commissioner Keller, President and Commissioners. I believe that we want to attract all businesses, whether it's a startup, an entrepreneur with an idea. This is the whole basis of the CEO Start program, but also the small business incubator that we plan. Any business that's starting, that's employing somebody, is important. So whether that is a singular
That's the phrase, that's employing somebody.
well, whether it's employing them own self.
Okay, that's what I wanted to. And then in terms of Bob comment metrics, the easiest metric is how many people are being employed. So, and I asked this question out of, again, ignorance, but that does seem to be the metric I've generally seen out there in the world. So what else are we looking for from these businesses? I certainly, we want to pay taxes, but there's got to be some, perhaps a little ethereal, but some metrics other than headcount. So what are those?
Some of the metrics, thank you, Commissioner, some of the metrics that we're using is also race identity. So for instance, when people come into Welcoming Wednesdays, we have a play card that has a QR code on it to take a quick survey of why you're there, how you heard about it, how you identify what are the resources that you're looking for. And so I think that we have to continue to be innovative on how we're collecting this information, because over the course of a year, we want to find out how many people we're assisting, what's the time involved on staff, and is it successful? So I think with all of these, you know, as we've moved our way through 2023 in this short time, there's a lot of variety of projects that we're working on or exploring, and we have to keep track of that data to find out if it is successful. If there's particular metrics that you would like to see, we can certainly incorporate that into what we're collecting.
So I think what I just heard, to relate it back to what I heard, creative placemaking. So we're stating, and I want you to correct me, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, that we as a city have a value of diversity. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like one of the goals that you're looking at is, are we creating a diverse community as a result of some of these programs? So is that a value that we're trying to meet? I'm just saying as an example, because I know we've talked about a lot of values and what we think we want to be with our strategic vision and all that stuff. And a lot of them are squishier than others. I happen to think the diversity thing at least ought to be easier to count than a lot of things, because it's nose counts to some extent. But that's what I'm trying to decide, and that's why I asked you to start with about sole proprietorship or whatever, because I think it seems like trying to build a more diverse community is a less controversial thing than trying, well, God, I'm lost for words, but that's why I got to measurement and that sort of thing, because I know this is not exactly Madison, Wisconsin. And so people will have these reactions that you spoke to, and I am cognizant of how we, for lack of a better word, promote this to the community and be able to explain why we're doing it in a way that doesn't result in, okay, but what are you doing for me? So that people know what it is they're doing for them, as opposed to having to speculate and feel like perhaps it's at the expense of someone else. So that I'm getting right up to the line of trouble, and I'm going to stop.
Commissioner Carter?
This time.
Thank you, Chair. So, or President, sorry.
Call me Bob.
I did want, so the conversation around data and measurement evaluation just made me think about our community strategic plan that we have in place now that obviously applies to our work across our community. It applies to the Port Authority, HRA, all of us. And one of the strategic goals is a community with equitable economic growth. And there are 3 measures in that. Economic growth is more equitably distributed, expanded diversity in business ownership, and equitable job growth. And though this strategic plan was created by hundreds of people across our community, and it has set the strategic direction for us for the next 5 years. And so our work on the port should align to these metrics and the outcomes that we're trying to achieve broadly across the city. And so I would just suggest that that's kind of where we start our measurement and evaluation thinking, and how these programs align or don't align, as well as being aligned to the strategic plan that we'll create for the Port Authority, obviously.
Well, so I thank you for saving me. That's kind of where I was headed. So the answer, one of the answers to the question is, this is one of the programs that we have created to support and energize the goal we have already articulated and has presumably been accepted in some way. Mm-hmm. And so therefore, this is one of the ways we're trying to do this, and this is another way we're trying to do this. And by the way, this is the by the way part that I was trying to get at. And by the way, it has these ancillary developments by creating diversity, not just about fairness of spreading the wealth to a certain place, but the overarching benefit of having more diversity, which I think is another one we talked, is in there someplace, if I remember from when I talked about it. So thank you.
Yeah.
You once again, someone saved me from being too bad.
Well,
Other commissioner questions?
I actually do have a question.
Yes.
So I also, like Commissioner Hunt, really liked what you said about helping businesses navigate the application and permitting process. But I also know that there are some other barriers related to things that might be in our ordinances and codes and just kind of long-standing practices in the city. And so I'm wondering, are you collecting information from small businesses related to those issues and bringing them back internally to hopefully address them? So I'm thinking, I know I heard recently about grease traps and how challenging the way that we, ask businesses to handle grease traps when they're, so things I don't really totally understand because I have never owned a business like that. But I think I've already seen some of this work happening, but I wanted to raise the question so that you could respond and share.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Carter, President and Commissioners. These are the things when we learn, it's as simple as going out and talking to businesses, what brought you to Bloomington, what's keeping you here, what do you love about Bloomington, what are the barriers to your business? And so as you build these relationships, gain the trust, you get to that part, what are the barriers? What is it? Is it our ordinances? Is it our policies? Is it our programs? And that's how we initiate those changes. Right now, our sign ordinance is getting overhauled. That has been an issue with our business community. And touching on the grease interceptors, it is a touchy subject. So
That was a bad example.
and it's a very expensive.
Really comes up that much?
It's very expensive.
It's like 25,000 or, yeah, it's like a crazy
So that
cost.
people would move here because of our punitive grease trap problem.
Well, and it's part of our infrastructure, right?
I come to these meetings. I just something every time.
But yes, we're having those discussions internally. And, some of that movement will be slower than others on some of these policies. But that's exactly where in 2022, talking about the SAC program, why are we not offering something more to the business community to assist them with this?
I appreciate that, Barb. And I also, I do recall us changing some city code. We have passed an ordinance related to things that we allow in industrial zones, right? Like catering and tattoo artists. I mean, things that we had probably never thought about. But to your point earlier too, I think this is also a great example of how when we build relationships and we focus on engaging people, across our community, women, people of color, long-standing businesses, new businesses, that we learn a lot, and then what we learn can help us change policy to make it better for everybody, right?
I see that connection with the meet and greet stuff. Why are you here?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything
Thank you.
else?
Thank you very much.
Barb. We appreciate your presentation. We're going to have Jason come up now. Wow.
Right. Good evening, Mr. President and Commissioners. So I'm going to give you guys a quick update from what the development team has been working on within this year. Majority of the projects come before this commission. So with this, I just want to give you and the community kind of an update of where these projects are at with regards to the development process, either they're opening or under construction. And I just want to also highlight, I don't have a slide on it, but I am one of 4 staff members working on the development team. So Becky Schindler, she used to be in the Port Authority. She was just recently promoted senior analyst to the assessing division. But 50% of her time is allotted to the Port Authority, so she is still assisting the development team with regards to TIF analysis, forecasting, as well as certain projects in the South Loop District.
And she has encyclopedic knowledge of all the McGuff projects over there, which is critically important.
She does, and that is part of the process as well, which I'll get to, is making sure that we are cross-trained amongst various staff members so that we do not lose that institutional knowledge. Additionally, we do have Economic Development Analyst Michael Palermo is on the team. You just were introduced to Kenny Niemeyer, our new Housing Development Specialist, and then myself. So first up, it happens to be on the agenda yet tonight for another agreement, but wanted to give a quick update on the SIC. They are planning to move forward with their phase 2 as reported back at our July meeting. We are looking to sell this property to SIC in September. That sale hopefully will go through right after they receive zoning entitlements from the City Council in September. And in Q3 here, we and the Port Authority staff will be working with our architect Klauberg on the development design work for the parking ramp. Our parking ramp would look to start construction in spring with coordinating with SIC's development timeline. Bloomington Central Station, this commission is very familiar with the development that is happening out there. Right now under construction is Carbon 31 with Oxendale's Grocery Market on the first floor. This will be a phased opening for Carbon 31 Apartments. It is slated for that first phase to open in October of this year, and Oxendale's is looking to open in November. So very excited. I know a number of businesses in South Loop as well as residents are very excited for this grocer to open. Additionally, we are in talks and conversations with McGuff with regards to their next phase. And so those will continue to be happening. And when we are ready, we'll be bringing before this commission an update as to what that status would be with regards to their next phase. Rosa Apartments, if you recall, this project came before the commission back in 2020 during the heart of COVID. We were all virtual with this project, and with this project, the Port Authority did approve a housing TIF district, and right now, due to rates and construction costs, they have not started construction. But they do have an interim use permit on their property for the airport remote parking. And part of the conditions that the City Council has put on that IUP is that they do have milestones and check-ins with the Planning Division as well as the Port Authority. And so this fall of 2023, they are required to submit their pro forma, and we will go ahead and analyze that to see if it meets certain condition thresholds as to meet a reasonable return on their investment to move forward with the project, or if the market just isn't there, that they can go ahead and defer this development for another year. And so that analysis will occur here coming up in Q3. Additionally, at that same time, we had American Square come in with their development proposals. At that same time, the Port Authority did approve a housing TIF district for this area as well. What was proposed here was phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 was a 242 unit market rate apartment, so no affordability was being put forth within this project. However, under the Opportunity Housing Ordinance, they were paying the fee in lieu. And so they are paying a fee in lieu to defer the affordable units to their next phase, for phase 2. I'm happy to report that the Ardor did come in for their actual building permit here within 2 weeks ago. They have paid that payment of just over $1.5 million for the fee in lieu, and the Ardor is under construction. So if you do take a drive out there, you will see the framing occurring already. And so later on this fall, talking with the developer, they do plan to submit or continue, not submit, they plan to discuss with us their next steps for their phase 2 project. And we will be reviewing the TIF district with regards to that, just making sure everything aligns with their tentative timeline that they see for phase 2. The Mall of America Water Park project, a number of people in the community have wondered where the status is with this project. And talking with 555, I'm able to report tonight, they have put this project on hold right now, really due to the construction costs and where the market is today with regards to interest rates. So right now they have kind of shelved this. They do continue to analyze it, checking the market and stuff. If the market does a correction here, interest rates come down, construction costs stabilize, they will then further analyze it, and they may come forth under the proposal with which the City Council and Port Authority has granted for the financial assistance on this project, or they may come in with an amendment to that. But more to come on that in the future. But as of right now, this project is on hold for 555. Oxborough Heights, this was a project that the Port Authority staff worked on with the HRA Commission. So this was right during the transition of last year into the beginning of this year, 2023. So Port staff did all of the analysis and the development agreement on this project. This is located just east of Lyndale Avenue, north of 93rd Street. So kind of across where the Dairy Queen is there and Lyndale Flats, and north of the former Fong's restaurant. This is a 100% senior affordable project that the Port Authority worked on. We assisted with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund of giving the developer a loan out of that program, and a housing TIF district, which was an HRA housing TIF district. This project is under construction and is slated to open this spring of 2024. Europolis, Barb Wolf had just explained the Europolis deal. So Port staff has taken over this project from the HRA staff as well as part of our transition. And so I'm happy to report that the development agreement is finalized, and we are waiting on signatures for the execution of that agreement with the Europolis ownership. We did establish a redevelopment TIF district for this site, and city staff is administering the deed grant with which was awarded for this project to help demolish the former gas station on that corner. They are slated to do a fall demolition here. I know Europolis Dino is reviewing that. We're hoping that the fall demolition works out with this timeline, and we'll know more here within the next month. 700 American at the last meeting, July 29th meeting, concurrent meeting with City Council. You guys heard a little bit with regards to this project. City staff Port Authority staff is working on the preliminary development agreement for this property. We did apply for an LCDA grant to hopefully assist with the development of this project. This would be another senior project, about 125 units. We will be doing a future pro forma analysis. Will be coming in later this year. And if the tax credits are received, they would look for potential construction in 2024. Additionally, 1801 American is a property located in the Penn American District. So this is located at Knox and the corner of Knox and American. The HRA owns this property, and so the Port Authority staff is working with the developer Stewart Co. on this site. We did apply for an LCDA TOD grant on this project, and we are in discussions right now for a preliminary development agreement. The developer is waiting for the market to adjust with regards to interest rates. When that timing works, they are ready with their entitlements, and they would be ready to start construction when the financing can be secured. And with that, we continue to have multiple conversations with developers as well with regards to development sites here within the city of Bloomington. When those become public, we will bring them before this commission, but I just wanted to let you know that we do have these conversations. We have developers calling our planning division, or they calling the Port Authority, and we go ahead and we meet with them. We identify sites for them to look at if they're interested. We're also trying to be a little bit proactive of talking with existing property owners, specifically within our commercial node areas that the City Council has identified for potential redevelopment or rejuvenization. And so Port staff will continue to do that work, and hopefully when items do get submitted, we can then present those to the Port Authority Commission. Another thing that Port staff does, a lot of it is in the background, is we manage our TIF projections for all of the established TIF districts, as well as managing these funds. And with the transition of the work from the HRA over to the Port Authority, we are now adding probably another additional 10 plus TIF districts with which staff is analyzing and forecasting. And this is something that Becky Schindler, as well as the other staff, are working on, just to make sure that the accounts are getting the proper projections and increments as received. And then lastly, the Opportunity Housing Ordinance, as Kenny Niemeyer explained when he introduced himself, that management of that program has been transferred over to the Port Authority as well with regards to the transition. And so Kenny and the Port team is working on the management of the Opportunity Housing Ordinance, working with legal and our compliance section on a compliance policy to make sure that these developments are meeting all of the requirements in the approved development agreements, and then as well as trying to locate additional funding to help bring into our Affordable Housing Trust Fund. The state legislature just this past session did adopt quite a bit of money that's dedicated for affordable housing. And so our staff, working with the HRA and Kenny, will be analyzing the policies with regards to how is the city of Bloomington able to access some of those funds for our future projects to bring affordable units to the city. And then another item that we do, kind of piggybacking off what Barb Wolf was explaining, we also assist larger developments with regards to the funding that is available from the state as well as the federal government. One of the main items right now is the Federal CHIPS Act that was recently passed, and so we have been working currently with Polar Semiconductor on their application to the federal government, as well as their applications to DEED with regards to the Minnesota Investment Fund, the Jobs Creation Fund, and then the recently adopted fund that was just approved this last session, the Minnesota Forward Fund. That fund, the state set aside $400 million, with which $250 million of that is to help with the matching program for the Federal CHIPS Act. And so we have been in conversations with Polar with regards to all of these funds, as well as we hope to be in conversations with the other chip manufacturers here in the city of Bloomington if they are looking to move forward with future applications. And with that, I am open for any questions.
Questions for Jason?
Watch out as I blend the last two things into one. When we talk about diversity and creative placemaking, when I see these plans, the diversity I think of as architectural. And I'm sure this isn't the right time to bring it up, but I haven't seen one to date, so I'm going to do it now. You don't have to stay within our borders to see that. One gets the impression that most of particularly housing that's being put up is exactly the same. You know, they've got the square balcony, it's not too big, and these, you know, sort of modular kind of looking things. Pretty much every picture you showed us here is kind of that ilk. And I don't know where or if or when we have any input into that issue, but, you know, the creative placemaking, that working to do that is a little bit, in my thought anyway, swimming upstream when we're trying to create places that are unique against this, you know, this, I'm trying to stay away from adjectives, this large number of things that look the same. I guess you have to work harder if that's architecturally there's this sameness. And I just have two reasons for bringing that. One is aesthetically it makes me a little crazy. But the other thing is, as a redevelopment thing, which is kind of what we're talking about, I just get the sense that there's going to be a day, a year, when people are going to say, wow, I don't want to live in another one of those exactly same buildings as everybody else. And I'm just wondering how and when we try to exert some influence over that.
Can I piggyback on that?
Please.
Mr. Luntz, please.
Can you say ESG architects? The same firms. I ask every time a housing project up, who's designing it? ESG architects. It's like they're the only architectural firm in town. And to me, they're much the same set of plans with different cladding on the walls. Yeah. And I don't know what city has way of powers to do it, but drive through South Minneapolis and every one of those walk-up 2.5-story apartment buildings looks the same. And, you know, so I don't know what you can do to get the developers to hire someone else. I'm sure there's a cost factor in what they charge, but they've really got they've got that market dominated in the Twin Cities.
Yeah, the word creative just doesn't leap into your mind when you see all these things.
I think the thing that you do to get around that is to do more visioning, and much like at the University of Minnesota when we started the master planning, we brought in some international experts, and it's expensive, but at the same point in time, it really makes you think about some of those things. A lot of this, I think, is just driven by cost mechanisms, because if somebody's got these plans and they can do it on a much more cost-effective basis than somebody else, and so you get into some repetition. And if you go back over history in the city, you will see a lot of these brick apartment units in Minneapolis that were constructed, and there are a lot that look alike for a period, and then you've got another period that, so.
Sure, but that's why but a city like St. Paul is attractive to people because there are those multiple generations and styles. There's arts and crafts here, and then one of the big brick buildings we're talking about. And it just, no, we can't solve this today, nor should we try or want to. But if it's about attracting people here, we are taking the diversity of aesthetics of the housing market off the table as a distinguishing characteristic.
Well, one thing I think that we have very much going for us is we're at a real takeoff stage, in my judgment, in the whole South Loop area with respect to housing units and construction, and now with the grocery store coming. One of the things that has inhibited developers is that they have been able to generate a little less rent in Bloomington than in some other markets. And I think to the extent that this becomes a place where people consciously say, I want to be in that area because it's exciting. And I think we're right at that point that that's likely to happen with the access to all the recreational amenities and all these things. And so then you could start to see, and I think that could become an example of how you get people to be more innovative, because to be innovative takes money and stuff. But I think...
But we're not the innovators in that regard, right? So, I mean, this is the question I have and why I'm bringing it to you, because I think it belongs to you. So when we're talking about development, we're talking to developers, shouldn't there be a place in that process to say, how would you like to build something that doesn't look like everything else? How would you like to, what's the process of you being interested in having something that isn't got right angles over the entire building? What can we do to create a diversity of place that involves more than goldfinches, much as I love goldfinches. And there has to be some place where we can exercise that influence because we're giving people money to move their businesses here. We're giving people money to develop businesses. And I get the economic issue about, well, people aren't making as much money here. But, you know, we had a project some years ago where we had a lot of these things, but we were being sold on a notion that between a square block of this kind of stuff, there was a variety of different kind of cultural places there. There were, you know, the outdoor movie screenings in one, and a dog park in one, and that kind of stuff. But I just...
You talking about the Indigo?
Yeah, but again, I just, you know, the only thing good I can feel about this architecture now is it really ought to be easy to slap it up against the side of a parking ramp and make it look like it's housing. And that's...
Well, I think we should take a look at the clock, and I think this is an interesting discussion, but I think we've got a couple items on the agenda, so maybe we should.
I'm sorry, I appreciate that, but I just
Yeah,
never
no, I
feel
mean,
like I have a
again, I
place to do
think
it.
the concepts that you're raising, Commissioner Keller, are something that all of us have looked at. And part of the thing that's going to change is as the trees get bigger, you'll see some of it less too. But I think that it's a challenge in the area. And unlike when you're building on a university campus, you can control the architecture to a degree. We're really, all we can do is react and respond to other people bringing things forward. And obviously, they're going to be looking at their economic pocketbook, and particularly in the last 3 or 4 years with the greatly increasing construction costs and things, they've been doing everything that they can to just try and get a project to go forward. So it's a difficult environment, but hopefully, again, to the extent that we continue and can create the environment, and again, we've got this wonderful resource called parkland that, you know, just gives us an ability to do these things. So, well, any further questions for Jason? Yep, Commissioner Lund.
Please turn your mic on, Rob.
It went a little fast for me. On the 1801 American Apartments, who's the developer and how many units there?
President Erickson, Commissioner Lunds, 1801 American, Stewart Co. is the
Oh,
developer.
Stewart, okay.
Yep. And they have been approved for 99 units.
Okay, and that's market rate?
That is going to be market rate with 9% of the units at 50% AMI.
Okay. 9% affordable. Okay, and then 700 American. Where is that precisely? Is that East or West American?
President Erickson, Commissioner Lunds, that is just south of the REI.
Okay. Okay, that's at REI. Okay, great, thanks.
And President Erickson and commissioners, just to your comment, Commissioner Keller, I think that's duly noted. Internally with our planning staff as well as Port Authority staff, we have had that conversation with regards to the design of these projects, and just kind of knowing that when we start to have these discussions with developers, we can definitely raise that to them, and we can take a further look with regards to our codes as well as our development manual in the pipeline to see how we can possibly address that in the future. And we can report back on that.
Don't want to extend the conversation, but I just want to put a stake in the ground. I've been doing this thing for 15 plus years. No one's ever had a conversation with me, and I never heard one at a meeting about this issue. I would really like to have a conversation. This isn't the right time. Can we make a right time sometime? I'd really like that.
Well, again, I think that's something that in terms of the work plan, Holly, that you can certainly look at, and we could
Can we
look
talk
at what's
about
important.
it, though?
You know, one of the things I just, since my memory goes back a few years, I remember when McGulf started with the whole area of Bloomington Central Station. They toured the country, they went all over, and then they constructed these two beautiful architectural buildings called Reflections. And the recession hit, and they couldn't make them work. And finally they did, and over a period of time they sold. And so that was an example of just the economics of something really taking and dampening people's creative desires, because they were creative and it didn't pan out for them. And again, they've gone through now with a lot of other things and built things, but there's a tension there that isn't. But I think part of what you're talking about, Commissioner Keller, is visioning. And that is something that, if we spent some money and really had some people that came in and talked about different things, innovative ideas and things like that, that could stimulate the discussion and I think be a good one.
Well, we've talked about a lot of different things like that, and we've talked about it in diversity and the importance of affordability and all of that kind of stuff. And I think this kind of issue, and I'm with you about parks, and are great, it doesn't percolate up to us here the way it perhaps it might. I'll bet you care. I care. So that's all I got.
Okay.
Not all I have.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
I think we can then move on to our preliminary Port Authority budget and levy. Holly, are you going to?
Absolutely. Mara, would you be able to advance slides for me? Can you advance slides for me when I ask you to? Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you very much, President Erickson, Mayor Bussey, Commissioners. Thank you. This evening, we will present to you our 2024 Port Authority preliminary budget and levy request. Next slide. To give you a bit of context as to where we are this year, in 2022, the Housing and Redevelopment Authority completed an assessment which gave the following recommendations about how our organization should work together in the future. The courses of action recommended included that the HRA and Port Authority should optimize their complementary strengths and services as economic development agencies for Bloomington. The HRA would then focus on single-family and small residential development and related programs, while the Port Authority would support mixed use and larger housing development and more actively support business retention and expansion. The Port expands powers and services, including placemaking, citywide, and the HRA and Port restructure staff to support these priorities. This year, the Port Levy was meant to be turned on to support those expanded services and the expanded geography. Unfortunately, we were not able to turn on the Port Levy, so instead, the HRA transferred $1.4 million of their levy to the use of the Port, with the understanding that in the future, the HRA's levy would come down and the Port would be able to turn on its levy. This is the year in which we turn on the levy, and we have worked very hard to keep that at a minimal impact to the average household in Bloomington. Next slide. So our 2024 mission and work areas include: our budget allows us to support a mission and work areas, and to advance citywide strategic priorities. Our mission is to provide orderly economic development throughout the city of Bloomington, including all of the groups that you just heard from: development and redevelopment, business assistance, and creative placemaking. And we also wish to align with the city's priorities in the Bloomington Tomorrow Together strategic plan. Those include a connected and welcoming community, which we are achieving with our placemaking work and bringing it citywide. This encourages residents to feel more connected to their neighborhoods through art and engagement. We are also working on the city priority of a community with equitable economic growth, and that includes growth that's more equitably distributed, expanded diversity in business ownership, and equitable job growth. That will mean expanding our reach across Bloomington and focusing on assisting employers and developers of a range of sizes and backgrounds. And yes, Commissioner Keller, also sole proprietors. All right. Our 2024 preliminary budget and levy is as follows. The total budget is $2,224,632, with a preliminary levy request of $1.5 million. And that results in an impact on the median value homeowner of $2.30 per month. With that funding, we will be able to grow our team. In 2024, we expect to have 9 full-time employees, 2 shared staff, and then shared support staff in legal and accounting. Additionally, we'll be able to continue and expand some of the programs you heard about, as well as add programs to our portfolio. As far as continuing and expanding programs, we'll be expanding commercial and mixed-use development and redevelopment assistance citywide, including our TIF applications and grant assistance, facilitating the administration of Bloomington's Opportunity Housing Ordinance, offering business assistance services to small businesses and early-stage entrepreneurs, offering creative placemaking citywide, and completing a citywide placemaking planning process, and completing our own 5-year economic development action plan for the Port Authority. Next year, we will be adding programs as well, including a facade improvement grant program to assist businesses in updating their exteriors. We will be allocating development grant funding to assist development projects citywide, and we are including development and operational funding for the Small Business Center to open in fall of 2024. I'm sorry, that was all next slides. Keep going. There's our organizational chart. Next slide. And our budget highlights. Next slide, please. I'll now ask Jan Almquist, our accountant, to come to the podium and talk through our budget.
Welcome, Jan.
Thank you.
You don't have any budget adjustments for us today?
Not today, but I will be bringing them. Don't worry. Before the end of the year, you'll get,
Right.
get it again. So, President Erickson and Commissioners, it's my pleasure to be able to give you this information. And I thank everybody who's come before me because I think they've done an absolutely fantastic job of telling you why we have what we have up here. So just as Holly was saying, we do have about $2,350,000 is projected the revenues, which is coming from the property tax levy of $1.5 million. And then there will also be $850,000 that we will be moving over from the South Loop to help with the Port's General Fund. So there is basically at this point, there's two funds here that are being presented together. That is the General Fund and the Development Fund that are coming in here. Expenditures are made up of salaries and benefits of $1.1 million. Your material and supplies services are $889,000. Internal charges, which is your, the charges for the staff being here and our, all that kind of stuff, is another $188,000. There will be a transfer that we are projecting of about $900,000 that'll be going over to help with the American Square and the Rosa development admin funds, as they have not collected TIF yet. So that comes out to your total expenditures of $2,222,632. So we do have, more revenues coming in, which will help us in the future. These are preliminary requests. We will be bringing back to you the end of October or the 1st of November final numbers. On this, we don't project that they are going to be dramatically different, obviously. That's why we're doing it, but I do this evening, we are asking that you review these numbers and approve the preliminary budget and the resolution for the property tax levy so that we can get that to Hennepin County.
Jan, can you talk a little bit more about the big reason for the material supplies and services increase? Because that's up $511,000.
Yes, I certainly can do that. So I'm just going to bring it out to the materials, supplies, and services for the Port's General Fund, which is what we have always looked at, has stayed relatively the same. I mean, in 2023, we did have an increase in that we will be bringing back to your comment about you're bringing a budget adjustment. We will be bringing a budget adjustment for that once we know, but as we all know, there were some additional expenditures coming this past year because of the expo. So most of that really is coming, the majority of that increase is coming from the development. Part of the reason that you're really seeing that large of an increase is because when we set this budget up last year, we didn't know exactly what we were the specifics of what we're doing in the Small Business Development Center and the cost of that at that time. So really right now, we have a lot of costs coming in 2024 that we're estimating to really bring that Small Business Development Center up and running. We have,
Where are those numbers, the small development center in the expenditures?
It's all in this material supplies and services.
I'm sorry,
putting
it's
in
what?
there. Excuse me. Sorry, Commissioner Lentz. They are all in this material supplies and services. We haven't broken them out specifically, but they are for the construction, the business center leasing, the lease there, the operating costs of that are on there. And then we are also having some development grants. We're putting $100,000 that we are anticipating for development grants in there. And the front door revitalization program is another $150,000 that's in there.
Well, I think when this comes back for the final approval, it would be good to have a detail of those numbers so that we can see them, and it just helps. So, I mean, at this point, this is a preliminary, and I think the important thing that we really have to accomplish tonight is we need to approve the levy so that it can go to the city council so that we can go through this process, and I think that's pretty straightforward.
Right.
The rest of this all of this is going to be coming back to us again in December, I think, for the final budget approval, but I think it's, especially when we have increases like that, it's good just to have them detailed so that we can see where they're going and look in the amounts.
President Erickson, I appreciate that comment and feedback of how you want to see this information. I know that in the past that we were said, hey, let's give this information
Well,
similar to what the city is receiving. So that's kind of where we came up with this one. But I also recognize that, in the past, that we also have given you guys a little more detail that the commission has received.
Well, in the past, we were the same for so many years. I mean, again, we just had a very small, and I think that's part of the change that we're going through now that we're getting more citywide and that things. We look at these things, and so it's just helpful to have a little more detail on these things so that we can, really fully understand where the dollars are going and look at it. But Port Authority questions, Commissioner Lentz?
Yeah, I just find, the internal charges number, I mean, we see these big bumps, obviously, from the amalgamation of the port and the HRA, but just what is in internal charges? That's such a generic term. What is it?
It's basically our space and occupancy charges. So the number of people, as has been explained previously, has been increased. The number of people that are in the Port Authority, it's more than doubled than what we were, a few years ago. And so that is space and occupancy. Then those are, excuse me, that is a fixed number that we do. So, Kari Carlson, our budget manager, does give us that number and tells us, okay, based on this information, this is how much it's going to cost.
And then a little bit tied to it.
If I could, Rob, just to fill in, I mean, it's space and occupancy, it's the IT cost, it's the copiers, it's the mail service delivery, it's the heat, it's the cooling. I mean, it's all of those occupancy costs that you'd typically pay as a department or as a business in a larger setting.
It's the terminology more.
Yep.
And then the other, you said the 2024 budget is based on 9 full-time BPA employees plus 2 shared staff, and then shared support staff. What was that for 2023? There were like 3 or 4 employees.
Well, it was based on what we were intending to have in 2023. So some of those staff members didn't come on yet. We're bringing them on, and so that's why 2023 is, higher, because when we allocate that staff person, then we're starting to give them the charge. That's how they get the charge.
Well, Holly, maybe you can explain the transition, because we absorbed some employees from HRA, and so
Numbers up.
yeah, Yeah, so I think, but I
Sure.
think in terms of that you had the transfer of the employees.
Absolutely, President Erickson and commissioners, prior to 2023, the port had 5 staff. In 2023, the port has hired or will plan to hire 5 staff. This includes some of the shared staff that I'm speaking about. So we had a significant jump over time, and I don't think that the 2023 budget fully reflected all of the staff that have been built into this year.
But weren't some of those also, did the HRA decrease their number of employees or something, and some effectively came, or are we talking about?
We are,
5?
President Erickson and commissioners, we are sharing Kenneth Niemeyer with the HRA, and we are sharing Rebecca Schindler with assessing. So some people have come in, some people have come out, some people are 50%, 80%. I cannot speak to whether or not the HRA has reduced their staff. I'm unsure of that.
Well, I think, again, when this comes back for the final, it might be helpful just to have a chart just detailing how those things went through again. And you know, as we go through these transitions, and for years we had exactly the same numbers, and we were always telling you, Jan, and you're up in front, you know, we don't need to spend hours talking about this because it's pretty simple. Well, now it's changing some, and so again, as we go through the transition, I think detail is helpful.
I appreciate that, and thank you for the feedback again, President Erickson and commissioners. However you want this, we strive in the finance department to give you what you're looking for, and so, you know, what detail you want is what we will.
And you have been very responsive at that, so, which is why you win awards.
So.
Yeah. Okay, so are we at a point where we need to?
Almost, President Erickson. We do have one more slide.
Okay.
So as I mentioned, this vote today is part of a longer process that will take place throughout the end of the year. This is one of several steps we need to take to have our levy approved by Hennepin County. So tonight we are asking you to approve the preliminary budget and levy, and for your just knowledge, this is the cap on the levy. We could reduce it later if we wanted to, but this is the cap that we will set for the rest of the year. September 18th, the preliminary budget and levy go before City Council. September 29th, the preliminary budget is submitted to Hennepin, or preliminary levy as request is submitted to Hennepin County. October 3rd, we will return with our final budget and levy recommendation. December 4th, City Council does their final levy request approval, and December 20th, Hennepin County has their final levy submission from us. So I wanted to make sure everyone was set in the multiple steps that need to happen, and I appreciate your attention to this tonight, as it is, you will see it a few more times before we complete the process.
Okay, Commissioner questions? Commissioner Luntz?
Just a wonderment question. Who gets to present this to the Hennepin County Board?
I believe it's actually a paperwork submission.
Would you like to be delegated to represent us there?
Randy Johnson retired.
All right, other questions? If not, you have resolutions on page 4, and the actual written resolution is starting on page 5 and 6.
Mr. President, if you would, I'd move to approve the Port Authority's preliminary 2024 budget for the Port Authority Development and General Funds.
We have Commissioner Bussey made a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Carter. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
And Mr. President, I'd move to approve the resolution authorizing a preliminary levy for the year 2024 pursuant to Minnesota Statute Section 469.053, Subdivision 4.
Motion made by Commissioner Bussey. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Carter. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Okay, so we're now on to the structured parking maintenance agreement with SICK. Jason's going to come back.
All right, Mr. President and Commissioners, I'm here before you tonight for a structured parking maintenance agreement for the SICK parking ramp. This is an agreement between SICK and the Port Authority. So as previously stated, SICK is looking to move forward with their Phase 2 construction of their office complex, and as part of the development agreement that was approved by this board and the City Council, the Port Authority is constructing and paying for the associated parking ramp that is to meet the requirements of their Phase 2 office complex. So just quick highlights, looking at the schedule, this is where we have come. Back in 2019 was the initial discussions, and we are here before you tonight for this approval. Last meeting, July 31st, the City Council and Port Authority did act and approve the First Amendment to the development agreement, as well as the lease of the parking ramp. And at that meeting, we stated we would be coming back before this board for this structured parking maintenance agreement. And so just a quick outline here of showing where this is located. You'll see Phase 2, the green box to the right, is their office complex, and then to the left or to the west is where the parking structure would be located. As presented at the July 31st meeting, just another recap of the public investment with which the City Council and the Port Authority is assisting SICK. We are looking to assist them financially with the land price adjustment, which was approved back on July 31st. And then with this, it's also the construction of the structured parking facility, which is both the capital project as well as the long-term maintenance. And that's where this agreement comes into play. And so just a quick highlight, as I stated, the parking lease and management agreement was approved at the last meeting, July 31st. And one of the key points of that is that the maintenance, taxes, and assessments, security, and utility costs will be shared at 50% by SICK and Port. That will be outlined in this shared parking maintenance agreement. The agreement that is in the packet tonight outlines this. As I stated, it is between SICK and the Port Authority. The key points of this agreement is, as stated, that SICK is responsible for the cost and expense to maintain the structured parking facility. However, then the Port Authority will reimburse SICK up to 50% share of those maintenance, utilities, taxes, assessments, and security costs. Annual maintenance and a capital budget review process is outlined within this agreement, where SICK will prepare a preliminary budget for Port Authority's review and approval prior to the beginning year with which that budget is for. There is a procedure within the document as well in case if the Port Authority is not in agreement with any of the perceived budgeted expenses or maintenance. We do have that outlined as to how that is detailed. Additionally, we do have a requirement that after a certain time period, there is a requirement that a third-party engineering and architectural consultant is to inspect the ramp just to make sure to look at long-term capital project costs with regards to maintaining the ramp for its longevity is outlined, and then that will help with the capital budget as well for SICK to prepare. Additionally, SICK will be in charge of maintenance does include the operational electrical systems, landscaping, and signs. And we do have the typical insurance requirements as well as any remedy if SICK, for some reason, was not able to address any of the maintenance concerns. Julie Eddington, the Port Authority's General Counsel, has reviewed this document, as well as it was sent to Melissa Manderscheid, the city attorney as well. And additionally, SIC attorneys have reviewed it, and everyone has agreed to the document, with which is in your packet for tonight. And so with that, the Port Authority is looking for a motion from this board to adopt this structured parking maintenance agreement with SIC, and I am open for any questions.
Questions? Commissioner Lutz?
Yeah, I'll make the motion, but first the question. How many parking spaces in the ramp and how many surface spaces when it's done? And I presume, I really want to know for the whole campus when it's done. Phase 4 and 5 or 9 or 12 or whatever. But yeah, I'd like to know what that is.
Okay.
And then, and is SIC really going to be using all those spaces in that ramp day to day? I mean, it looks like a big ramp. It's just eyeballing the artist concept on it.
All right. Mr. President and Commissioners, Commissioner Lunds, the first phase of the ramp is slated to be right around 550 parking spaces. We're still, like I said, we're in the development design period right now. Those amounts could adjust a little bit here or there depending on the design. If SIC is to move forward with their third and fourth phase, depending on parking analysis with our parking requirements of city code, there is a slated expansion of the parking ramp to accommodate those spaces. So that could be another addition of about another 500 to 550 parking spaces in a structured parking facility. To date, I cannot give you the number of surface parking lots. That is something I can definitely get when I'm back at my office, and can send that in an email to the commissioners with regards to the Port weekly update as well. We do have Dave McGinty here from SIC. Not sure if he happens to know numbers. 225. 225 surface parking spaces. Thank you.
And then the city's been in the ramp business for quite a while. We've got a number of these with 555 and whatnot. Just in general, is this shared use agreement follow those lines very closely, similar type of operational duties that each one is assigned on it? Are they close, or does this one have a different twist to it in any way?
Mr. President, Commissioners, Commissioner Lunds, this one is a little bit different with regards to the SIC and the Alpha project with the AC Marriott Hotel, Element Hotel deal. Because this is a sole business using the parking ramp, and with regards to our funding, we are using both South Loop development funds, which is for public improvements, as well as using Mall of America TIF funds, administrative TIF funds, to help cover it. Because of the South Loop development funds being used for a strictly this ramp, we cannot use South Loop development funds to invest in a sole business, one business. If it was multiple businesses using this ramp, we could, similar to what the Mall of America did, with all of their businesses using the ramp, as well as the Alpha ramp just to the south of this property. There's multiple businesses using that ramp. That met the definition of public purpose, and it could be sole utilization by those businesses. Because this is just one business, it is a ramp that is open for the public during off business hours, which is identified within our lease agreement, and then it's strictly for SIC during the business hours between 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday, excluding holidays and weekends. And so because of that agreement, with this being a public ramp as well, that is where we get into the maintenance agreement of the 50% split, whereas 50% of the time it's going to be used for a public purpose, 50% of the time it's going to be used solely by the SIC officials. And we will analyze that. It is open where we can adjust that percentage if we need to, based on any timing and usage of that ramp.
That's great. I understand it. But I'm just wondering, who's going to use this when SICK isn't going to be using? I mean, it's a bit of a hike over to the Mall of America.
I think what Jason is telling you is this is something that is designed in this way to meet the public law test. And the amount of public usage that probably will be occurring is probably not going to be that high, but it will be available. And, you know, conceptually what you could do during the holiday season or something is you could have a shuttle from the Mall of America over there or some other facility. So it is something, but this is just the way it has been crafted so that we can take and move forward in terms of making this project economically feasible for SICK.
Well, there are so many. I mean, you go to a Twins game, you can park at one of the ramps. Go to the State Fair, you can park at one of the ramps. Is there thoughts that some of that could be shifted over here too then, or who knows?
I think during your public hours, anything would be available. So, Commissioner Hunt?
I'm not disagreeing with the methodology at all and crafting it for that. But at the point if it's an issue, we need to rely on SICK to come forward and say, you know, they've got people coming there presumably at 6 in the morning. If somebody else is using it for overflow, who's going to be the monitor of that? It needs to come back from, obviously, a working relationship between the city and SICK, but you'd hate to have issues for SICK employees not being able to use, you know, at 6 in the morning. Somebody wants to do overnight parking, well, they better get over there and move. So it doesn't disrupt the business that it's intended for during those hours.
Yep. Mr. President, Commissioners, Commissioner Hunt, that's correct. And with the agreement, with the lease agreement that was approved back in July, the public hours is actually, it ends at midnight.
Okay.
The ramp does.
Okay.
Additionally, it will be monitored and secured by SICK. They will have security. We will have a security system with regards to the ramp. And in addition, there are going to be gates installed in there with regards to those would be closed during SICK's exclusive rights to the ramp to the public. But there will be guest parking spaces within the first level as well for any of their guests that need to park there as well.
Okay. Well, I don't have to entertain a motion because we actually have Commissioner Luntz has made the motion.
And I'll second that.
Page 12, and you second that, Commissioner Hunt seconds. So any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please signal by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
Sorry.
And I think, Holly, we have anything else that we need to cover?
Perfect.
Well, we will adjourn.